The queen who waits for death. The palace was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of endings. Inside the tallest tower of the dying starship palace, Queen Soraya of the Lithari Empire lay on a floating crystal bed. Her skin, once glowing, like the moons of her homeworld, had turned pale and dim. Her long silver hair now tangled, weak with age and illness. Her body, once feared across galaxies, could barely lift a hand. Doctors stood near her in silence. Alien healers from 10 systems had tried to cure her. Machines, potions, light therapy, soul binders. Nothing worked. The disease inside her was not from war or poison. It was something older. Something deeper. "I can't heal her," whispered the last doctor, a being of light and smoke. "Her spirit is already leaving." The royal advisor, Lord Krell, bowed his head in sadness. "How long does she have?" 3 days, the doctor said. "Maybe less." Krell nodded and stepped forward. "My queen," he said softly. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing a dull purple. "Yes, Krell." Her voice was soft, almost like a breeze in winter. "The doctor says, the time is near. Do you wish to make a final speech? Prepare the galaxy for your departure?" Soraya turned her head slightly, her lips twitching into a weak smile. "No," she whispered. "I do not want speeches. I want a human." Krell blinked. "A human?" She nodded. "There's a man from Earth. I saw him long ago. I want to see him before I die." Krell looked confused. "Do you want him punished?" Questioned. "Did he harm you, my queen?" She gave a soft laugh. "No, he saved me. 30 years earlier, a young alien girl, lost and injured, hid behind an Earth tree. Her ship had crashed during a secret exploration mission. She was bleeding, frightened, and alone. That night, a human boy, barely 10 years old, had found her. He had no idea what she was, but he gave her a coat, brought her water, shared his food, and most importantly, he never screamed, never ran. He sat with her in silence. The next morning, her people found her and erased the boy's memory, but not hers. She never forgot his kindness. Back in the present, Krell was stunned. "You remember a child from Earth? That's who you want in your final days?" "Yes," the queen said firmly. "Bring him to me, I don't care how. Find him. But we don't know who he is, what he became, even if he's alive. I will not die until I see him," she said. Her voice had a strange power now, not of command, but of longing. Krell bowed. "As you wish, my queen." The search began immediately. Across the stars, the queen's command echoed in secret channels. Find the human boy who helped Queen Soraya. Advanced AI scanned old Earth records. Agents landed in remote towns. Data from 30 years ago was pulled, filtered, analyzed. And then, they found something. A man named Elliot Rain, age 39. Lived quietly on Earth. No military history, no criminal record. But when shown an image of the young Soraya from years ago, he hesitated. "I don't know her," he said. But his eyes said otherwise. He agreed to come, curious. He remembered strange dreams from his childhood. A glowing girl in the forest. A memory that felt more like a fairy tale. He didn't know he was about to walk into the heart of a dying empire. Back in the queen's chamber, her breathing was slower now. Machines beeped quietly. The stars outside her window looked colder. "She's fading," whispered one of the nurses. Krell walked in. "My queen," he said. "We found him." Her eyes opened again, wider this time. "He's coming," Krell said. "He'll be here within the hour." Soraya didn't speak, but a tear slid down her cheek. For the first time in years. Her heart beat a little stronger. Not because of medicine. Not because of hope, but because of one memory. Of a human child who didn't run away when he saw a broken alien girl. She was a queen. A warrior. a leader of thousands. But in her last days, she was just a woman, waiting for one man, the one who showed her kindness, before she became a monster in the stars. The human who was taken, Elliot Rain, was a simple man. He worked as a restorer in a dusty old library in the countryside, fixing old books, repairing broken spines, breathing life into forgotten stories. He liked silence, hot tea, and the smell of ink. His life was quiet and lonely. But that changed the night the sky split open. It began with a strange hum in the air, low and vibrating like a cello being played by thunder. His lights flickered. The ground shook gently, and then, without warning, his entire room was filled with silver light. He opened his eyes, and he was no longer in his house. The chamber he woke up in looked like it belonged to a dream, or a nightmare. Everything shimmered, walls made of liquid glass, floating lights that followed him like silent fireflies, and air that smelled like metal and rain. Elliot sat up, confused, wearing the same hoodie and jeans from Earth. "Where am I?" he whispered. A voice replied, soft but cold. "You are on the Lysarian, the royal starcraft of the Lithari Empire." Elliot turned. A tall, four-armed alien in deep purple robes stood watching him. His eyes were like crystal mirrors. Behind him stood two silent guards, tall and sharp as statues. "Wait, why am I here?" Elliot asked. "The Queen has summoned you." They didn't explain much. Elliot was led down long, glowing corridors, past alien nobles who stared at him like he was a puzzle, or worse, an insect. Some whispered. Others laughed softly. A human, that's what she wants? Perhaps her mind is already gone. He didn't understand. Who was this queen? And why did they bring him here from Earth without warning? The guards stopped at a golden gate. "She is inside," said the tall alien. "Do not speak unless spoken to, and do not touch her unless she allows it." The doors opened, and Elliot stepped into silence. The Queen's chamber was unlike anything he'd ever seen. It wasn't grand like a throne room. It was quiet, soft. The light was dim like the inside of a candle. In the center floated a bed of crystal, and on it lay a woman, but not just any woman. Her skin glowed faintly lavender, like dusk on another world. Her silver white hair spread around her like a halo. Her eyes, though heavy with pain, still held strength. And something else. Recognition. She looked at him as if she'd been waiting for centuries. "Elliot," she whispered. He froze. "How do you know my name?" The Queen smiled weakly. "I never forgot." He took slow steps toward her, unsure if he was dreaming. I've seen you before," he said. "When I was a kid in the woods. You were hurt, bleeding. I gave you my coat." "I was scared," she said softly. "I had never seen a human up close, but you didn't scream. You sat beside me. You spoke gently. You disappeared the next morning. My people erased your memory, or tried to, but I remembered everything." Elliot's heart pounded. "But why me?" he asked. "Why bring me here?" The Queen's eyes glistened with emotion. "I'm dying, Elliot. I have days, maybe hours. I've ruled empires, conquered systems. But in the end, I remembered only you." Elliot didn't know what to say. His hands were shaking. She continued, her voice like fading music. "When I was a girl, they trained me to be a weapon, a queen with no emotion. But that night, in the woods, you gave me something no star, no war, ever could." He whispered, "What did I give you?" "Kindness." There was a silence that filled the room like mist. She reached out slowly. "Will you stay with me?" He looked at her fragile hand, once strong enough to lead fleets, now trembling like a leaf in winter. He stepped closer and gently took her hand. "I'll stay." Her eyes closed for a moment. A breath of peace escaped her lips. Outside the chamber, the royal guards looked at each other with concern. Is he Healing her? One whispered. No, said the other. She's simply feeling something she hasn't felt in years. Meanwhile, deep in the palace, whispers were growing. Why is a human beside the queen? She's losing her mind. This cannot be allowed. Plans were being made in secret. Not everyone wanted the queen's final wish to come true. And Elliot had no idea that by simply holding her hand, he had started a war he could never see coming. A memory they both share. The queen slept. For the first time in days, her breathing was calm. Her body no longer shook. Beside her, Elliot sat silently, still trying to understand what was happening. He should have been scared, angry, even panicked. But something about her presence felt familiar. Too familiar. He looked at her sleeping face. She was alien. Her ears slightly pointed, her skin glowing faint purple in the dim light. But beneath all that, there was something human in her sorrow. Something soft behind all the power and pride. Couldn't stop staring. And then, the memory hit him. It came like a lightning flash in the brain. One single scene, buried for decades. A boy, maybe 10 years old, alone in the forest behind his house. The wind was cold. The stars were bright. And there, hiding under the roots of a tree, was her, not as a queen, not in royal robes, but small, bleeding, afraid. She had looked up at him with glowing purple eyes, thinking he would scream, but he didn't. Instead, the boy knelt, took off his jacket and gave it to her. She had trembled as she wrapped it around herself. He offered a candy bar from his pocket. They didn't speak the same language, but she smiled, and then she touched his hand. A strange spark passed between them. Not pain, not fear, just something warm. Elliot gasped and stood up in shock. It was real, he whispered. You're real. The queen opened her eyes slowly. She had heard him. You remember, she said, her voice faint but filled with emotion. I thought it was a dream, my whole life. A story my mind made. No, she said. You saved me. Elliot sat again, his hands shaking. Why did you come to Earth? She looked up at the ceiling, threw it toward the stars. I wasn't supposed to. I stole a ship. I was curious. I hated being a princess. Always watched, always trained to kill. I wanted to see something real. And you found Earth? I crashed. I was bleeding. My bones were broken, and then you came. There was silence for a long time. Then Elliot spoke quietly. You said I saved you, but I was just a kid. You did more than you know, she said. In your world, I was just a stranger, an alien. You should have screamed or run away, but you sat with me like I was someone worth saving. She closed her eyes. That single act, she continued, shattered everything they taught me. I knew then that humans had something powerful, something dangerous, something beautiful. Elliot stared at her. I never forgot, she said again. When I became queen, when I led armies, when I sat on golden thrones, I still remembered the boy who gave me his coat. A long pause. Then she turned to him again. Her voice was softer now. Do you want to know why I called for you, Elliot? He nodded, unable to speak. I don't want to die like a weapon, she whispered. I want to die remembering what it was like, to feel alive, to be touched with care, to feel safe. And you're the only one who ever gave that to me. Elliot's heart was pounding now, not out of fear, but something else. Deep, old, strange. He reached into his backpack. Wait. He pulled out something small, wrapped in plastic. The queen watched as he carefully unwrapped it. It was a candy bar. The same brand from that day. I kept eating these for years, thinking they were just comfort food, he said, smiling softly. But I think my body remembered before my mind did. The queen laughed, just a little. But it was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. Suddenly, the doors burst open. Krell entered quickly, face serious. My queen, he said. The council has summoned an emergency meeting. They do not approve of this connection. The Queen sighed. Let them speak, let them scream. I have no empire left to rule. But if they act, Krell warned, he won't be safe. Elliot stood up. I don't want to cause trouble. The Queen turned her gaze to him. Her voice had steel now. They will not harm you, Elliot. Not while I breathe. Her fingers brushed his hand again. It was the same spark, the same warmth. Two different beings, one forgotten bond. The last wish of a dying Queen Soraya sat upright for the first time in days, wrapped in dark royal silk, her skin glowing faintly. Under the chamber lights she looked less like a patient and more like a storm waiting to break. Beside her stood Elliot, confused, quiet, but no longer afraid. She held his hand in hers, not like a ruler holds a servant, but like a soul clinging to the last thread of memory. The royal council waited in the circular room beyond the glass walls, watching, judging. They were not pleased. They're calling it madness, Krell whispered to Soraya as he stood behind her. They say you've grown weak, that your mind is lost. They're wrong, she said. They've seen the human. They think you intend to pass something to him, power, legacy, and they won't allow it. She turned her head slowly. Her voice was calm. What I give Elliot is none of their concern. But to them, Krell continued, he is unworthy. He is not of our blood, not of royal lineage, and not one of us. Soraya gave a tired laugh. That's exactly why he matters. The council doors opened with a hiss. 12 figures entered the Queen's chamber, tall, powerful, wrapped in gold and shadow. Their faces were stern, their movements sharp. The lead counselor, Varka, spoke first. His voice echoed. Queen Soraya of House Lithari, we honor your service, but we question your choices. Elliot stood awkwardly, trying to stay invisible, but Soraya pulled him closer. I see you still hide your fear behind formality, Varka, she said. The counselor ignored the insult. You are near the end of your reign. The people need clarity. A successor. A path forward. Soraya nodded. And you think that path looks like you? I am prepared, Varka said, lifting his chin. Unlike this creature from Earth, he pointed at Elliot with disgust. He is not a prince. He is not a warrior. He is barely even useful. Elliot opened his mouth to speak, but Soraya raised her hand. I do not want a successor to the throne, she said. I want a successor to my heart. The room fell silent. What did you say? Another counselor asked, baffled. I have ruled with strength. I've crushed rebellions, broken kings, watched stars burn. But in the end, Soraya whispered, I remembered a boy who saw me not as a queen, but as a person. She turned to Elliot. I brought you here not to make you ruler, but to ask for something more powerful than any throne. She faced the council again. I want to pass on my memory, my truth, my story. And I want it to live inside someone who once showed me kindness without fear. Varka scowled. This is emotion, not leadership. Soraya smiled weakly. Emotion is what your empire lacks, and why it's already dying. You would rather give your legacy to a human than to one of your own bloodline? I trust him more than any of you, the council murmured among themselves, offended, enraged. Varka took a step forward. Then we will strip your title. Declare your last decision invalid. You are unfit to rule. The guards by the wall moved slightly. Elliot tensed, but Soraya didn't flinch. Then take it, she said softly. Take my title, take my crown, but you cannot take him. Krell stepped forward quickly. That would be unwise, counselor. The Queen still holds support in the outer colonies. If her final command is disrespected, there will be war. You threaten us? Varka said, eyes burning. I remind you, Krell replied, that power only matters when people believe in it, and many still believe in her. The council glared but said nothing. Varka turned and stormed out. The others followed. Silence returned. Elliot sat beside her again. "You just gave up your empire for me," he said, stunned. "I gave up something that was already dying," she replied. "You gave me life once, Elliot. I'm just giving something back." He looked down. "I'm not special." She touched his hand again. "To me, you were." Later that night, she grew weaker. Krell entered and whispered, "The council is watching. You may not have much time." Soraya smiled faintly. "Then bring me the crystal." Krell brought a glowing blue sphere and placed it in her hands. She turned to Elliot. "This is my soul archive. It holds my thoughts, my history, my fears, my joys. Every moment I've lived." She lifted it slowly. "I want you to keep it, not as a ruler, not as a weapon, but as a reminder of what I was, who I became because of you." Elliot took the orb. It pulsed softly in his hand. It was warm, like her memory, like her heart. A kingdom without an heir. The queen's chambers were now silent like a tomb. She slept more than she spoke. Her body was weakening, but her presence still ruled the room. Each breath she took felt borrowed, fragile, final. Elliot sat beside her, every hour, holding her hand like it was the last thread connecting her to life. He barely ate, barely blinked. His world had become her bedside, her whispers, her memories. In his pocket, the glowing crystal pulsed softly, her soul archive, her legacy. Outside her room, the empire was collapsing. The council chambers were in chaos. Varka slammed his fist against the round table. She has no heir, no plan, no bloodline to carry her throne forward. Because she chose to give her legacy to a human, another shouted. A stranger, a primitive species. Some demanded her be declared mad. Others called for arresting Elliot. A few even suggested dissolving the monarchy altogether. "She has broken the sacred bond of our kind," Varka hissed. "If we do nothing, the people will follow her choice, and not our law." Meanwhile, Elliot walked through the queen's private garden, a floating sanctuary lit by starlight and glowing blue flowers that bloomed only when sadness was present. He carried a cloth in one hand, a bowl of warm water in the other. Back inside, he gently cleaned the queen's hands, wiping away the dried blood from her failing veins. "You shouldn't waste your time on me," she whispered weakly. "You gave me your story," Elliot said, dipping the cloth again. "The least I can do is make sure your hands stay clean." She smiled, a smile full of exhaustion, pain, and peace. "I wish I could see my home one last time," she said, voice thin. "You mean your original world?" She nodded. "Before I was queen, I lived in the Valley of Suns. Golden light, soft rivers. I used to sneak away from the palace and hide in the grass. Pretend I was nobody." She looked up at him. "Being nobody was the last time I felt free." Elliot stayed quiet. Then he reached into his bag. From a small box, he pulled out a memory device, a simple earth object, an old Polaroid photo, a picture of green earthgrass, the woods near his childhood home. "I used to hide here," he said. "Pretend I was someone important." They both laughed. Two souls, one used to power, wishing for peace. One used to peace, never knowing his power. In another wing of the palace, Krell stood in front of the queen's remaining loyalists. "They're planning something," he warned. "The council won't allow a human to carry her memory freely." One of the generals, a four-eyed woman with silver armor, stepped forward. "We'll protect him with our lives." "He's not a soldier," another said. "He's just a man." Krell shook his head. "No, he's more than that now. He's her wish. And that makes him more dangerous than any weapon we've built." That night, Elliot heard her whisper his name again. "Elliot." He rushed to her side. "I dreamed of you again," she said. "But you were a boy, and I was whole, and we were running through grass. No guards, no council, just sun." He sat down and touched her forehead gently. "Sounds like peace." She nodded slowly. "Will you stay until the end?" I'll stay even after that. The Queen smiled one last time that night. Then something inside her shifted. She gripped his hand tighter. Listen, she whispered. They will come for you after I die. They won't let my memory live inside you. Promise me. Don't speak, he said, his throat tight. Promise me, Elliot. Don't run. I won't. And then she slipped back into sleep. But the halls outside were no longer safe. Varka had activated Plan 9. Guards loyal to the council began moving silently through the palace, their armor dark, their faces hidden, their target, the human, in the khaki. Final hours of her life, the Queen lay surrounded by silence, love, and danger. And Elliot? He held her hand, unaware that armies were preparing to tear him from her side, before her body was even cold, because in a kingdom with no heir, the man holding her memory had become the throne itself. Rebirth in Aishende. Her final breath, she didn't open her eyes that morning. The Queen, once feared across 5 galaxies, now lay silent and still. Her breathing, slow as a dying star. The glow in her skin had faded to pale moonlight. Her fingers curled weakly around Elliot's hand. He hadn't left her side all night. He hadn't noticed the guards had doubled outside her door. Hadn't seen the whispering servants vanish. Hadn't heard the steel boots echoing in the lower halls. All he could hear was the silence between her breaths. I don't know how to say goodbye. He whispered to her. No reply. Just a soft exhale, and then stillness. His hand trembled. His heartbeat raced. Soraya, he whispered. Please. He leaned in, forehead to hers. Don't leave yet. Behind him, Krell entered slowly, eyes already wet. It's time, he said gently. Elliot shook his head. No, it's not. She was just talking to me last night. I know. She said she remembered the valley. She smiled. She held on as long as she could. Krell placed a cloth over her chest, and the glowing crystal, her soul archive, began to pulse rapidly in Elliot's pocket. The memory inside her was reacting, waking, changing. The palace lights dimmed, and then a sound, like thunder underwater. The ancient AI systems confirmed it in every room. The Queen has passed. Lithari throne, now vacant. Power core, unstable. Memory host required. The moment she died, her soul began looking for a home, and it had already chosen. Elliot dropped to his knees as the crystal burned hot in his palm. Blue light spilled from his fingers into his veins. His eyes rolled back. Images, feelings, memories not his own, rushed through his mind like a flood. He saw Soraya's birth, her first war, the moment she was crowned. Her pain, her secrets, her lonely nights under alien moons. He saw himself, through her eyes, how she saw him, the boy in the forest, how she carried that warmth like a hidden fire through cold years. Tears fell freely. He wasn't just holding her memory, he was becoming it. When he opened his eyes, the chamber glowed, not with tech, not with power, but with presence. Something of her still lingered inside him like stardust woven into his breath. Krell knelt before him, head low. She chose you, he whispered. She shouldn't have, Elliot replied, his voice trembling. I'm not her. I'm not a queen. No, Krell said. But you're her witness, her echo, and now, her shield. Suddenly, alarms rang. A deep voice boomed through the walls. Council guard entering royal chambers. Human subject. To be detained. Varka had struck. Not even an hour after her death. Krell pulled Elliot up. We have to move now. Elliot clutched the crystal to his chest. I won't leave her. They're not after her. They're after you now. The chamber doors shook, under the weight of plasma torches. They'll erase the archive, Krell said, voice sharp. They'll wipe your mind clean like they did when you were a child. Everything she gave you will be gone. Elliot's eyes blazed. Then they'll have to kill me. With a shout, the doors exploded. Council soldiers in black armor stormed, in with guns raised, but before they could reach Elliot, a beam of violet energy cut across the room. One of the Queen's personal guards had returned, and behind her, dozens more. Old loyalists, pilots, healers, palace staff, they stood between Elliot and the invaders. She gave us peace, the lead guard said. Now we'll give her protection. The hall erupted in chaos. Blasters hissed, shields sparked. Elliot was pulled into the back corridor, escorted by Krell and 2 guards. Smoke filled the air, but the crystal pulsed brighter in his chest, guiding him, fueling him, and deep in his bones. He felt her strength, her grief, her love, all buried in his blood. Now, they reached an escape pod room. Krell slammed the control panel. Go, he said. Get off this ship. Take her memory somewhere they can't touch it. Elliot turned. Come with me. No. Krell smiled sadly. My fight ends here. Yours is just beginning. The door closed between them. As the pod launched into the stars, Elliot looked back one last time. The starship, the palace of the Lethari Empire, was burning behind him. But in his hand, in his veins, in his soul, a queen was still alive. The man who carried a queen. The stars whispered her name. As Elliot floated through space, far from the burning bones of her palace, the silence of the galaxy wrapped around him like a cold blanket. But inside him, within his chest, within the glowing memory crystal that pulsed against his skin, Queen Soraya was not gone. She lived in flickers of vision, in the scent of alien rain, in the echo of her laugh, in the way his hands now shook when he remembered how still hers had become. He was no king, no warrior, no legend. He was just a man who stayed by her side until the very last breath. And now he carried her legacy across the stars. 3 systems away, Elliot landed on a small moon with no name, a forgotten place, half forest, half ruins, the perfect hiding spot. There, with nothing but starlight and memory, he built her a shrine from stone and metal. No soldiers, no speeches, just one man, and a promise. I told you I'd stay even after the end, he whispered. Weeks passed, and then months. He lived quietly, alone, the crystal glowing dim in his chest at night, like her soul was keeping watch while he slept. But the galaxy had not forgotten. Word had spread. The queen is dead, but something strange followed the news. A human carries her memory. He holds her archive. He was the last one she chose. To some, he was a threat, to others, a symbol, and to many, a hope. One day a knock came on his door, not a bang, not a threat, just a soft knock. He opened it to find a girl not older than 15, skin like stardust, eyes trembling with fear. She held out a metal token. I'm Lethari, she said. They killed my family because they still wore her colors. Elliot stared. She looked up. But I heard you kept her alive. He stepped aside, letting her in. That was the first. Then came another, and another exiled soldiers, runaway medics, refugees from rebel worlds, even alien poets and historians. Not because he was powerful, but because he remembered, and they were tired of forgetting. They built something, slowly, not an empire, a circle, a place where her archive was studied, not worshipped, but learned from. Her mistakes, her victories, her love for peace, and her hunger for strength. Elliot didn't speak much, but when he did, it was always the same truth. She was feared by millions, but in the end, she just wanted someone to stay, someone to see her. Then one night under twin moons, Elliot lit a flame at the shrine. I used to think I was small, he whispered. A boy in the woods, a man in a library. He looked at the stars. But you saw something bigger in me. And I see it now, too. The crystal pulsed in agreement, not with words, but with remembrance. Back on the old Lithari homeworld, Varka's rule was crumbling. His empire built on silence and fear had cracks in its walls. Too many remembered her differently. Too many believed in the man she chose. Elliot was invited years later to speak before the first United Planet Assembly. He stood in a simple robe. Not a crown, not armor. He placed the archive on the table. This doesn't belong to one species anymore, he said. It belongs to anyone who ever loved and lost. To those who ruled, and still wished they could rest. He looked at the crowd. I didn't come here to replace her. I came to carry what she left behind. So none of you forget what power really is. And the assembly rose. Not because of fear, but because of truth. Some say he died alone, years later, in the garden he built with his own hands. Others say his body vanished in starlight, but all agree on one thing. Wherever humans and aliens gather, whenever old empires fall and new ones begin, there's a story whispered in the wind. Once, a dying queen chose a human boy who gave her kindness, and that boy grew up to carry her heart across the stars.